Hi,
Colombia.
everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is the ladies, the Millionaire Ladies Mob tonight. It's Thursday. It's 6:30 for me, 7:30 for some, 8:30 for others. So welcome to our show. My name is Aaliyah Sherrod. I am the healthcare queen, and we're going to just introduce ourselves real quick, and then we're going to go into what we're going to talk about this week. I'm enjoying this too. So, Saran, you want to go?
Hey, my name is Saran. I am in Bowie, Maryland. I help high earning, high achieving women go from chaos to calm in their finances. And I do that all day and every day. So I'm excited to be here again, back with my Millionaire Ladies Mob. And you can always connect with me at joinsaran.com.
Hey, I'm Carmen Bernard. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. It is 8:30 for me. And what do? I help you to protect income, eliminate debt, and retire with a income retirement stream that you cannot outlive, as well as create a legacy for generations to come. You can connect with me at carmen10k.com. And some of you, I'm back. I was just on here, so I'm back again.
Well, thank you for coming back and joining us, Carmen. So, tonight, everyone, we're going to be talking about an emergency fund. And do you have enough? We're going to bring out some tips and just ask you to look inside yourselves, think about what you're doing, how you're spending your money, so that you can actually think and have enough money for an emergency. We've all experienced some type of an emergency, whether it was a car, an emergency where you went into the hospital. Maybe, you had an emergency on your way to work. We've all experienced an emergency. But what we want to talk about is how do you handle it and how do we get a handle and get a hold over our finances so that we're better equipped to handle emergencies. If you don't have an emergency fund right now, it's okay. We're going to give you some practical tips about how to create an emergency fund for you and your family. So we're going to get started. We're going to have to start asking questions, is what I'm going to do. And then we're just going to get right into the meat of what we're going to talk about. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is setting up, or actually, what is an emergency fund? Some people think it's where you have to have a ton of money set aside for a rainy day. What is an emergency fund? So that's going to be a topic. We're going to answer that. Saran or Carmen, do you have any thoughts about what an emergency fund is? What does that look like for you or your clients that you talk with? Carmen or Saran?
Oh, go ahead, Carmen.
All right. You know, an emergency fund is basically for emergencies. All right. So, I've spoken to people before that's told me I've never had an emergency fund. The truth of the matter is that you have. You may have had an emergency, you did not have enough money, and you found a way. You went to family maybe to borrow it. So maybe family was the emergency fund for you in order for you to satisfy or fix whatever emergency was there. But then you had to pay back that money. So all we're saying is that you're going to shift that and create a fund for emergencies and true emergencies. And to understand, we need to get an idea of what emergencies are. It's things that are unexpected, truly unexpected. Okay, so getting into a car accident and having to have the car fixed, that would constitute an emergency, right? Having the refrigerator stop working on you because it needs a new motor or something like that would constitute an emergency. Getting a flat tire or two or three, that would constitute an emergency. The biggest things about emergency funds is that you fund it, but you only use it for emergencies. And then once you've used it, you replenish it, just like you would have replenished that family member that you borrowed it from. You taught enough of them, you respected them, you wanted them to be able to be there for you the next time it happened, the same way you would treat yourself and your emergency fund. So you're going to replenish it because you want it to be there for you when the next time that you need it. And I'll yield right there, but I have a lot more to say about emergency.
Well, that's good. I wanted to say something. I remember years back, oh, I may say about 10, 15 years ago, I was going back and forth. I was commuting from California to Arizona, back and forth. And thinking about an emergency fund, I was driving up the hill. There's a hill that you go up when you're on the highway, and the car started messing up. And I thought, oh my goodness, it was the engine. I was going too fast and just hitting that, hitting that. So there was an emergency. So those things happen. They happen to the best of us. Now here's comes an engine. So you want to know why you need an emergency fund? It's for things like that. I was talking to another friend of mine, and one day she says, you know what, I think I'm pregnant. Is that an emergency? You can actually, that could actually be an emergency, because now you're going to have another mouth to feed, and guess for how long? A long time. When they grow up, they still come home to eat.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to chime in here. So, one of the things for me when I think about emergency fund, I think about the pillars of my finances or the pillars of finance in general, right? When you think about, people say, oh, are you financially independent? Are you financially free? Or are you financially abundant? When I think about having a solid emergency plan, emergency fund, I think of it as it creates a sense of protection and peace of mind for you in the time when things may go awry. Like the examples that Carmen gave earlier and Leah gave earlier. I had a real life situation where I did actually have a car accident and things did get out of order as far as I was dealing with my health and trying to recover and things to do. But I wasn't worried about money because I had prepared myself as far as my emergency funds and my backup plans where things kept going. And so I had a physical medical emergency, but I didn't also have a financial emergency because things were already planned out. And so when we get here and we say, hey, plan for emergencies, we're giving you some definitions, but you can define that for yourself, what that means. Now, in some cases, and some people might think Usher's pre-sale tickets is an emergency. But but if that's your definition, if you're at that financial level, fine. But if you're not, then maybe Usher tickets isn't a part of your emergency, something you should use your emergency fund for. But the thing is to really make definitions for yourself. And that's why we work with people individually, because just like Carmen and Leah just gave examples, everybody's definition is going to be different, but we all need the fund to do things for us when something goes awry.
So right. And we really need to ask ourselves, am I preparing for my financial future? And does this include that emergency fund? Is it separate from preparing for my financial future? That's something that we really need to think about. Do we have enough money left over at the end of the month to take care of an emergency, or just finances? Those are things that we really need to look at. We're going to also talk about, I know we're saying a lot about emergencies, but if you look on the news all day, every day, there are people that experience emergencies all the time. Some of them get through those emergency, just like Saran said, she prepared for an emergency. And having an accident and having your health limited for a period of time, you don't think about those things. But when it happens to you, you say, my goodness, I'm so glad I was prepared. And Saran, you learned that throughout your time, throughout your life. Was there a specific way that you learned to set aside money, and so you would not have to be worried about when you had that emergency? What did you do to prepare for that?
Well, one of the things that was the most important thing is to make it automatic. I made it automatic so I never even saw the money. And then I had a plan. Like, we're in tax season and we see a lot of people getting big amounts and they're spending it. For me, I always made sure a portion of, if I was receiving a refund in the times that maybe I made sure a portion of it was set aside for my future and for things that I didn't know were coming. Because at the end of the day, there was a time when I was much a younger me, where there were emergencies and there was no emergency funds and there was no emergency person to call, right? And
Mhm.
so when you know better, you do better. And having grown through the situation, growing through my different eras of knowing that, you know what, when I was 24 and I had an emergency, I didn't have money. But when I was 34, I did. Now that I'm still 34, now that I'm still 34, I do too. But the thing is to recognize where you are. And really, we should be teaching our children to plan for their future. We should be teaching them to plan for have a backup. We may not use the words emergency with our children or grandchildren. We may say, this is your savings for the future. This is your money to spend now. This is your money that you're going to learn to invest with in a certain way. But if we don't start having those conversations early and often, then people do think that their emergency is someone else's emergency when they need the money. Because why wouldn't you give me the money because you have it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And here's something that I want to touch on, because many people are living right now without an emergency fund. And part of it is because they don't really recognize the need for it, probably because they have an emergency person, someone who always is there for that. And they never really had the education around it. And that's why we share what we share on here, just so to make things clear, to have it out there, to have the conversation about it. But what I don't want anyone to take away from this is that just because you don't have an emergency fund, or because you never thought about it, or you just think you can't afford to do it, it's not more than 50%. I think probably the number is higher than that, of people do not even have $400 in their accounts to cover an emergency, right? And that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to let you understand that no matter where you are, you need to start where you are. And just like Aaliyah asked Saran, like, what did she do? And she shared some pointers of things that she did. I just mentioned this in the last show that I was last people that I was speaking to earlier today. Listen, even if it's 50 cents, even if it's $1, you want to structure that's where that money is going. Saran had a great point, making sure that it's automatic, because once the money is swiped out of your account, it's gone. You don't miss it. You find a way. Somehow we find a way to live on what is left. Somehow. So what we want to do is start where we are. $5 from each paycheck, $50 from each paycheck, $100 from each paycheck, whatever we can do, double it the next time. And we want to grow that emergency fund. And also I want to mention, how much is how much should you have? Some experts say 3 months. Some experts say 6 months. Some experts say a year, after what happened to us in the pandemic. So, you need to start where you are. Set a goal. Do not set a goal that is so high that it becomes too much for you, but set a goal to get to 3 months. And then when you get to 3 months, maybe you get to 6 months, or set a goal to just save one paycheck and save up to that paycheck. So that's important for us to also understand.
Carmen, you hit it right on the head. I really enjoy what you said is that if you set your goal too high, that may cause you to have a lot of stress. Then what happens is it's too far and you don't think about it. You say, you know what, I can't do it. Then you don't do anything. So what you want to do is set a goal. Sit down and think about, how much can I spare when I get money? When you get a bonus, let's say you might get a commission check if you're in sales, maybe every other commission. If you get a salary plus commission, maybe set aside your commissions, but start somewhere. It doesn't matter. What you need to do is start. That is the first thing. I talk to a lot of seniors throughout the day when I'm going over their insurance, and we're talking about Medicare with some seniors. They have not thought about how they're going to pay for their Medicare. They think it's free. So you want to sit down and you want to count the cost. You want to count the cost and figure out what's going to happen if I don't do this. Or maybe, don't go out 5 days a week, go out 4 days a week. They're little things. Start small. And I really appreciate that you said start small, but do something.
Yes, definitely. And the other thing is, darn, I'm having a senior moment. You just said it. I'm not as young as Saran. I'm in my triple 20s now. Well, actually, I will be there in May. That's her. She used to say she was in her double 20s. I'm now in my triple 20s. But you're absolutely right. And one of the things I want to touch on before we leave tonight is why retirees need an emergency plan. So I want us to circle back to that. Whatever I was going to say is gone for right now. When I remember, I'll bring it back.
There was one thing I wanted to ask. Some people might be thinking, well, you know what? How do I even start? Do you guys have some tips on how do you get started? I mean, with that, maybe, $10, $5. How do you get started? Any thoughts on that, Saran or Carmen?
Just do it.
I like that.
I know. So we're here telling you what to do, right? We're telling you need an emergency fund. You want to know how to do it? Then one of the ways you do is you work with financial professional who'll give you direction on how to set it up. But a simple way how to do it is have an account separate from your day-to-day checking where you pay your expenses, right? For some people, it's a little bit more complicated. Some people keep it simple. Some people, have their rent and their mortgage come out automatic, and they put that in a separate account so that they didn't even touch it. They have their emergency funds go to a different account so they don't even touch it. And it's just up to you. If it's if you're a person that you feel like it's too complicated to have multiple accounts, then you can find another way to do it. But you want to be able to set it aside. And there was something that we were saying earlier that I wanted to just impress upon you because this came to mind. A lot of people think that the retirement accounts that they're setting money aside in is also an emergency fund. Well, it isn't. Because if you start using your retirement account as an emergency fund, what you do is you lose the interest on that money every time you borrow from that retirement account. The qualified retirement accounts, the way that they're set up. So while there's no penalty to borrowing, quote unquote, there is a cost because you lose the cost of the interest. And most of the time you have to sign a disclaimer that you understand that you're losing the future interest. So because you're using the money now. So it may be better to set that money aside. And the biggest thing is to understand that having an emergency fund creates a sense of financial independence to the degree that if you know you have 6 months to 1 year of solid expense money or even income, because there's two different numbers, right? If you're saving your expenses for a year, that may be different than what your actual income is for a year because everyone doesn't use their income every time they get paid. So it's kind of two numbers, but you want to put that aside in somewhere that's safe right? Secure, that you have liquidity, you have access, and use and control. And so you want to think about those types of things when you're setting up an emergency fund. An emergency fund is not taking the money and dumping it in the stock market. That's not an emergency fund. You're not dumping your emergency fund into Bitcoin necessarily. You want it somewhere steady where it will grow and is protected so that it's there when you need it in an emergency.
You know, I like what you said about the 401k or in your retirement account, because when COVID happened, the government allowed people to take money from their retirement without the penalties and things like that. And so they started dipping into their emergency, not their emergency, but their retirement. So now, if they don't have an emergency fund and they have a little bit of retirement, they have to use their retirement for that emergency fund. So we want to make sure we make careful choices. Sometimes it's necessary. I get it. Sometimes it is necessary. Things happen in life. A lot of people had issues. They lost their jobs. Food has tripled in price since the beginning of the pandemic or more. You know, I went to the grocery store. I used to love to buy the two things of olive oil from Costco. It used to be like $8 for both of those. And it's now 40 something dollars for that, for both of those jars of whatever you call them, olive oil, the big ones. So we didn't prepare for prices to go that high. So what do? You sit back and say, okay, think about what's my income? What do I have coming in? What can I spend? Do I really need it? You know, you might start to second guess a lot of the purchases that you made, 4 years ago. Do you really need that now? And like during the pandemic, I said I was kind of like a hoarder. So I literally didn't have to go to the grocery store for months because I had plenty of everything. And not that I planned for that. It's just I planned because I did not want to be without, and I didn't want my family around me to be without. So that was a way that kind of shielded me. And I planned, and I had my emergency fund. It's like I have my emergency stash. We always have to have the emergency stash. Sometimes you can't, there's things that you can't do, but having it and thinking about it and maybe making a conscious decision that I'm going to set aside, that's something that you can do. And I really appreciate that about what you said about the retirement accounts. Leave that alone. That's not an emergency fund. That is your retirement for your future.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You remembered, Carmen?
Look, oh, yeah. Now I remember. The question was, I love that question. What do you do? Where do you start? You start with the B word.
Budget.
Budget. That's where we start. We start with the B word, with the budget. That's where we start. And we see what we are doing and where we can move, where we can allocate and move money, and now that I'm saying that, I'm realizing, and this is one of the reasons Saran said, speak with a financial professional. That's what we do. We show you how to move money, where to put it so that it works better for you. But we talked a little bit about retirements and pulling the retirement accounts and stuff like that. It's absolutely important that we talk about, doesn't the IRS tax you in penalties for early withdrawals? Yes, if you're under 59 and a half and dependent on what it is that you're trying to do. There are a couple of exceptions where they will not give you a penalty. But if you're just pulling it, it's just for that's something that you lost your job or something like that and you needed it, yes, you can get penalized. But there's certain exceptions that they make. But good, very, very good point. Thanks for asking that question. But what I wanted to say, and a lot of times when we're talking about emergency funds, we're talking about young people that are working. If you lose your job, that would be a true emergency, by the way, right? You lose your job and now you need to continue living because you don't have a job for the next 3 months or the next 6 months or something. That's a true emergency. How do you cover that? That's where we would put money into an emergency fund. But we don't necessarily speak about retirees. And why do a retiree, or why do retirees need an emergency fund? And here it is. It's super important. I was thinking about this today when we said we would have this talk on emergency funds. When a retiree has an emergency, right? Remember, they're now living on whether it's their pensions, their social security, and things that are coming in. Maybe their Roth IRAs or 401ks or whatever that they're going to. If an emergency comes and they do not have a fund and the market is down, this is not a good time for you to go pull money from there, because now you're pulling money when the market is down. You've already lost the money, and now you're pulling out more money. It's going to be harder to even get back to where you were before. So it's absolutely important that retirees also set up an emergency fund so that they're not they're protecting those long-term investments so that it could last them longer, right? Retirees also need it, as Aaliyah said, helping with medical costs. Medical costs is the number one reason for bankruptcy, and that's one of the reasons that that's a major number one reason for people going into bankruptcy. And cost of medications. There's some cancer medications that are $30,000 a month, right? So treatments, it's $30,000 a month. So having an emergency fund to help with those co-pays or those co-insurance is absolutely important. And I wanted to touch on that.
That's a good thought. Okay, so let's talk about strategy. Let's talk about some strategies that we can come up with, and maybe you haven't thought about this. Okay, some strategies that I thought about is um, maybe, and I have a friend who did this. He said, "You know what? I'm going to take a little second job." Okay, and it was a sales, so that meant she would get money based on things that she sold. All over the internet, you see all these people saying, "Hey, here's my side hustle. Here's this hustle. Here's that hustle." If you really think about it, there are a lot of things that people can do online. One of the things that you can do online is what we do. It's so much fun. It is so much fun just talking to people, helping them to decide. And when you have helped someone, let's see, make a decision and figure out their finances and then they feel good because they have their safety. Now they're safe. Their family is safe. They're safe. It makes you feel good. It's it warms your heart. And so that's a strategy. Maybe a second job. Don't try to kill yourself with a second job, but maybe a second income, small income, and that income you put aside. Make sure you put aside a little bit for taxes, because the IRS wants that tax. And you want to make sure that when you do get that money, don't just blow it and spend it. A lot of times we see the celebrities, how they get the big money, and the next thing you know, it's all gone. And you hear about these celebrities that made millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then, 10 years later, they're broke. I was listening to podcast the other day, and there was a famous rapper, and he passed away, I think, 11 years ago. His family is just now getting his estate. And so with a little bit of planning, a few things with him, they could have avoided that. The family could have used a lot of that money for whatever emergencies came up, the grandkids, sending the kids to college. So you want to think about that. A strategy could be getting a second income. And if you have a second income already, maybe a small third income. But this is because you want to build up, build up your emergency fund. That is what we're going to do. We're going to help you build up your emergency fund. But
Can I jump in here?
Definitely.
I jump in here now that we're talking strategies? Those are that was a very good strategy for someone to do, because it's, sometimes you guys heard me say this 1,000 times, you can't get blood from a stone. So sometimes you just have to do something else. So that getting that second job, getting a side hustle might work. But another way to quickly build your emergency,
What
sell
is
some
that?
stuff.
What is that?
Sell some stuff that you have that you don't need. Sell some of it and start building that emergency fund. Sell it. There are um, um, places online that you can actually just take the pictures, put it up there, sell some of those pocketbooks, sell some of those handbags, sell some of those sneakers, sell some of those shoes that you haven't worn, and don't wait. Like the other day I wore a shoe that I hadn't worn in years, and then after I walked about it in about a couple of things, the whole thing fell apart. I was like, oh my God. See, I should have sold that, and my emergency fund would have been bigger by that a little while ago or whatever, because it's been sitting there forever. But we didn't go out, right? It was pandemic. We didn't go anywhere. So
We
the
didn't
shoes
go
were
anywhere.
sitting there. But sell some stuff. That's a good strategy. And then, oh, wow.
I buy wigs.
She said she buy wigs. There you go. Sell some of your wigs. Matter of fact, look, I got my hair today. Y'all know me with my wigs. I love my wigs, and my husband hates my wigs. I told him from now
Really?
on, because he talked about my wig every single date we are going out. I'm gonna be wearing my wig. He was like, "It's okay. You don't you. It's the wigs look all right, but I like your hair better." So, y'all, I have my hair out, so I could sell you some wigs, lady. And then, Abike said one strategy that I have admired. I can't speak. I've admired from the elect 1% wealthy people is to exercise their right to file Chapter 11. Uh, that is another strategy. I don't know that it will fit for some of our people, but yeah, that definitely is another strategy. But selling some stuff. What do y'all think about that?
I think it depends on where you are, right? Some people may be watching and they may be at the place where, maybe they don't have it and they need to sell some things. And some people may be at a place where they have plenty of money. They just spend it. They're bringing in a good amount of money and they're spending a good amount of money, right? Because their money, they haven't told their money what to do. Their money doesn't know where it's going. It just kind of comes and goes. And so if you're someone, you have a high income and you have money coming in, you don't have an emergency fund, you need a plan, and maybe you will consider looking around and seeing what's what. I've often said, I can show you, if you don't have any money, if I walk around your house, I can tell you where all your money went. Because just depending on what stage you are financially, you may have spent, you can look around and see where your money is. And some things you buy may not have the value you think it has, and may not even be worth anything to anyone else for them to buy. So it's just a matter of consideration, and you may even get into the minimalist movement, which is my jam. I try to cut back on things, not because I don't like stuff, but because I like the free flowing energy in my life. I don't like to feel weighed down by anything. And so I found that when I kept holding on to so many things, that those things were they were more of a blockage from the flow that I was looking to get into. So I separated with a lot of things that I had, when I moved out of a house last year. And so there were things I had had for 25 years. And I'm like, you served your purpose. I took a picture of it and I got rid of it. But for some, you may want to consider what you're doing, or you may not want a second job. You may just want to get a promotion where you are, and that you can do too.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that promotion where
yeah,
you are.
that's
I
nice.
thought about that. And when you get a bonus, so some of us get year-end bonuses, or you get quarterly bonuses based on your production or based on the company production. Use that bonus and put that aside. Sometimes we're anxious for that bonus. Maybe, a new car is in order or something like that. But just think about, do I really need a new car? My car sat in a parking stall for like a year. I had like 5,000 miles on it. when I bought it in 2020. And, by the time 2021, into 2021, 2022 came, I didn't even have 10,000 miles on the car because I didn't go anywhere. And so, and I appreciated that. Now I'm all over the place. I'm back and forth to California because I moved to Arizona. And just like you said, Saran, that weight of just stuff, when I moved from California to Arizona, I realized I had to get rid of stuff. It clutter, and clutters your mind, and it allows you not to think. It stops the brain from thinking. And so when I got rid of a lot of stuff, and like now I'm like, Aaliyah, you don't need another dress, you don't need another shoe, you don't need anything. And I look at my closet, I'm like, what am I going to do with that if something happens to me? Has anyone ever had to clean out someone's house who might have passed away? And there's so much stuff in it that you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. I've had to do that. And it's like this, it's ridiculous. So when I thought about that, I said, you know what? Something happens to me, there's not going to be a lot of clutter. It's going to be easy peasy. They're going to be able to just get rid of stuff. It's not a lot of stuff, but clutters the mind. And so even if you can sell some of the stuff that you have in your home, or donate it and take the tax write-off for those of us that need tax write-offs, donate it to Goodwill or somewhere, somewhere else. Maybe there's a women's shelter out here. There are tons of women's shelters that you can donate and get credit for. When you get your those of us that do get money back on our taxes, I haven't seen anything back on my taxes in a really long time, but if you do, then maybe you can set that aside. Don't touch it, just leave it alone. That could be your emergency fund, or something that, a hobby that you like. Turn a hobby into a passion and get paid for it. There are a lot of people who like to talk. If you like to talk, join some of the groups and find out things that they do. If you like to paint, maybe you can start painting and doing something, and maybe sell something like Facebook Marketplace. They have all kinds of places you can do. And I've thought about all that kind of stuff, but I just don't have the energy to do it. The only thing I do is I like to sell. I like to do that. So a lot of my commissions will go to the side, and I leave that. That way, when I have an emergency, I don't have to worry about it. Another thing that we do on a regular basis is we talk about that insurance. Can someone explain how you can create an emergency fund with insurance, life insurance? I know you guys are specialists on that. Carmen and Saranda, let's talk about that.
That's funny because I'm sitting here and I thought, hopefully Aaliyah asks, because some people might be thinking, well, where do I keep my emergency fund? And Saran actually touched on it earlier when she said, you don't want your emergency fund should be different from your 401k or IRA and stuff like that. But yeah, where do you keep your emergency fund? You'll listen to some gurus and they'll tell you that it does not matter, but it absolutely does matter, right? You can leave it in a savings account, but remember, and savings account, there are advantages to that, right? It provides liquidity. You can get to it quickly. And most times in an emergency, you do not want to wait. You want to get it as quickly as you can to tend to that emergency. But then the downside of that is that money's not working for you while it's sitting there waiting for you. I mean, remember, some people might be making $5,000 a month. That's $60,000 a year. And if your emergency fund is a 1 year of your income, or even if it was $10,000 a month and then 6,000 of that was your expenses, so it's 60,000. That's a whole lot of money to sit in a bank account earning not very much interest. And even though interest rates have gone up, a lot of banks, especially the big banks, I'm not going to name them, but they are still paying you disrespectful under 1% interest on your savings account. And the fact is, if you try to put it into a CD, depending on how much you have in there, you might have to do like some layered strategies of where you put your money, because if you put it in a CD, then the risks of that is that it's not liquid enough, and if you take it out, you end up losing money. Even the interest that you have gained, you may lose that all and then some, even of the principal, right? Saran talked about the 401 and the 401k and the IRAs and why you wouldn't do that. But oh, did you know? Oh, did you know that you can put you can build your emergency fund, especially when we're talking large amounts of money like $50,000 because you're making, whatever it is per month, and you multiply that by 6 months, and now you have 50,000 or $100,000, that you can put your money in a cash value life insurance policy that allows you to be able to get it right away in an emergency, right? It may take 24 or 48 hours, but it allows you to get that money. But here is why it's important for that. You are now putting your money where you're getting good amount of interest. That's right, BK. CDs aren't liquid until maturation. My accent. But if you take it out, you end up losing, right? But here, your money continues to compound uninterruptedly, right? So you have it in a place where it's truly working for you at a better rate of interest than you would have inside of the bank, or the inside of a money market or a CD or a regular savings account. And here's the thing: when you remove that money to do whatever it is that you have to do, your money still keep compounding. Now, I don't know, maybe you had an emergency that cost $10,000 and you had to pull out $10,000. But did you know when you pulled out that $10,000, your balance would not have changed, right? You do owe, but your balance continues to compound as if you did not remove that money. Now, that's what I'm calling putting your money to work for you. So there are different types of insurance policies that allow you to do that. And it all depends on what it is that you are trying to achieve. What are you trying to do, right? For instance, we have different products. Some products are not designed to be an emergency fund in the first couple of years, but we have products where it's designed to be an emergency. And if you have $100,000, $50,000 sitting in the bank, you can move that someplace else now, making a lot more money, and then having it continue to grow and compound even while you use it, even while you spend.
That was a mouthful. Wow. Great strategy. Saran?
I don't have anything. I mean, Carmen said it all.
You said it all. Okay. So life insurance. Life insurance with cash value. That could be used. Are you saying use it as an emergency, some of it? Or are you saying have it so that if you should have an emergency, you know you got it? Tell us a little bit more, Saran. It's strategy that you've talked to a client about, as far as saving money and having an emergency fund.
Well, one of the things is I first do an assessment with whomever I'm talking to because I need to know where you are. I want to know what your problems are. I want to know what you consider to be an emergency. The best thing for me is I like to see, um, what is it that you want to plan for. And for me, understanding your needs are the most important. Having had my own experiences and having to use an emergency fund, I really like to look at it at a four-prong approach, right? We're looking at short-term emergencies, long-term emergencies. Then we can look a little bit about, that longer term where you're looking at a year of emergency funds. I know you're probably like, you just said emergency funds, but now you just gave me four, three or four different ways. I mean, and then the fourth one is other emergencies, right? Because we are communal, people, and we do help family members. But I like to set things up so that I know I have a budget, or I have an item where I know these things are for me, and this is in case someone that I love and care about calls me, and I want to be able to be there for them. And I think that that's important too, and that allows you to set boundaries for yourself and to make sure that you're able to give, but you're also able to take care of yourself. Because I've run into so many women, who look like me and they're burnt out and they're tired because they're taking care of everyone else and not taking care of themselves. Everyone else is in the plan except them. And so that's really the big thing for me, is to really think about, how are we planning for you? How are you planning for those around you? And how are you making that work to your benefit, with being able to still show love and being able to take care of yourself first?
Oh, that's a lot. I love that, Saran, because what you're doing is now you're thinking about family members or friends that you love, and help, and maybe you can help them. Another thing I thought about was, as we get older, those of us that, if there is, I start thinking about health, and what happens in an emergency if I can't walk, or what would happen if I just break a leg or something like that. That's how my mind thinks. Emergencies, I used to have emergencies with the car and stuff like that. Now it's like it doesn't happen anymore. My mind goes to emergencies as far as health is concerned. If I can't do something, who's going to take care of my home? You know, who's going to take care of me? There are so many things that we can plan for, and we're going to have episodes to talk about a lot of these things, because when I speak to some seniors, they have no idea some of the things. If they could just spend 30, 40, $50 a month, they could have maybe someone come to their home if they have an emergency and they can't move around like they used to. There are things that you can prepare for, times that you can have people come to your home and help you, instead of having and depending on a family member all the time. And when I sit down with a senior, or if I sit down with a couple, maybe the husband is taking care of the wife, or the wife is taking care of the husband, and now they have no time for themselves. They didn't think about that emergency, or what would happen, or what does the future look like. Well, what if both of them are down? Now what? So those are things that I think about, when, especially when I think about an emergency fund. There are policies which I personally always have, that if I get diagnosed with cancer or critical illness, I have something, there are funds that I have access to immediately that will help me through that emergency. We are living longer now. So you want to think about those things, because women live longer than men historically now. So we want to think about the things that, how are we going to get to the next phase of our life? When you get 60 or when you get 70, you're thinking like, okay, am I going to
60.
live to 80, 80 or 90? I have family members and friends that are living to 100, so what do you do when you're that age? You got to think about all that. You might be 40, 30 now. You're going to get there eventually. Enjoy your youth. You will get there eventually. You have to think about these things, and you have to think about your future, because you don't want to really be a burden on someone else. That's what I think about. When I think about emergency, I think about health.
I think that's the exact age that Saran is, 40, 30. But but what else? As you were speaking there about some emergencies, I just want to circle back a little bit on that, right? I really do not. I think as you put aside money for certain things, there's money that should go into savings. There's money that should go into emergency funds. There's money that should go into what should be called, what is called sinking funds. Meaning, it's not a true emergency, because car repairs are not a true emergency. Your car is going to break down. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of when, and we just need to plan for that. And so we need to throw some money aside for that. So when that happens, we know that that money is right there. You have to pay taxes, or you may have, especially you now, you got to plan for that. You got to pay taxes every single year. So that's not a true emergency. Neither is things like, I don't know if they do this in every state, but there was what used to be called that luxury tax. And every year you have to pay it like around your birthday. Here in Georgia, that's what they do. I think the newer cars, they've done it a little differently, but we had to go pay some big amount every year to get that sticker or whatever. That's not a true emergency. And your house, especially being a homeowner, right? Being a homeowner, and having the air condition break or having roof repairs or having, those are not true emergencies. Those are things that can be planned for and put some money away every little time. I mean, true emergencies are things that are truly unexpected. All those things that I listed before are expected things. So things that are truly unexpected, getting into a car accident, getting the loss of your job, the being laid off, the pandemic, those are true emergencies.
What is a safe place to put your emergency? We talked about life insurance. Is that safe to put it in there? And can you get it when it's time when you have an emergency? What do you think about that?
Yeah, and just like we have to do some staggering or some layering, right?
Uh-huh.
You want to have money that you can get to right away. You don't want to wait 48 hours, or 24 hours, 48 hours, 96 hours. You don't want to do that. However, if you have $100,000 stocked away total for emergency, you're probably not going to need that $100,000 all right there and then in 28 20 24 or 48 hours or whatever. So what you want to do is dependent on where you are is how you will do it. If you're just starting out, a savings account is fine, right?
Okay.
If you're just starting out, putting your things, a savings account is fine. But when you're talking 10, 20, 30, $40,000, uh, do we leave that in a savings account? Absolutely not.
Thank you for that. I love it. I love it. So absolutely not. Don't get the what quarter percent interest rate that
Right.
the bank is giving you.
Don't get the quarter percent that allows us to double our money in Noah years or in Abraham, in the Abraham years, because basically it takes you 1,200 years to double your money. So you put in your little $100. That's how long it's going to take you to double that money, and that's the reason why this is important. It's not just about emergency fund. It's not just about what you're earning. It's about financial literacy. It's about understanding how money works and how to make your money work for you. That's what it's about.
I love that. I love that. Because you know what? The bank is using your money. Why make it so that you can use your money? And that's what we teach. That's the education that we talk about. What do you do? Okay, we've talked about the emergency fund. We know we need it. We know you got to start. What do? You start little and you make it and you keep going and you keep going and you don't touch it and you don't touch it. But then what do you do when you amass a lot of money? 20, 30, $40,000. You do what Carmen said. You start sitting down with someone who's a financial planner or one of us, where we sit down and we talk to you about life insurance, what avenues that you can save that money, and then maybe you can, if you should need it, you can get it. But that is the most important thing. Once you start, it's just starting. You got to start somewhere. And once you start, you'll feel good. You'll know you have that safety net. You'll feel good about yourself. You know that you won't have to depend on somebody else. You don't have to go borrow Peter to pay Paul. It just gives you a peace and a sense of security. So that's all we want to talk about, is making sure that we have that sense of security with us. Just start somewhere. It's a great conversation to have because it's first of the year, taxes and things like that. So we have to start thinking about our full year plan. What are we going to plan out for the year?
Well, and I think I like that, right? Because a lot of times we see the different conversations about tax refunds and things like that. And, if you've already built up bills that are waiting for the tax refund, then maybe restructure it. But at the end of the day, you know, I always say that getting a tax refund means that you let somebody else hold your money all
Right.
year long last year. And so for me, I rather have my money throughout the year and have it gaining interest in the different vehicles that we're able to use. But at the end of the day, it's about making smart money choices. And you often hear people say, "Oh, nobody sat me down and taught me this and taught me that." Well, with we're in the age of information, all the information you need is available. But I caution you not to just make decisions with your money based on some talking head. And we're talking heads right now, technically on the videos, but you want to sit down and have someone look at your situation. And that's why I say, if you're just taking advice from a TikTok video, you said, and I'm not knocking TikTok because I make videos, but the thing is that you want someone to be able to look at your information. We don't take medical advice from just a video. We look at it, we research, we go to our doctor who will then do tests on us and take blood and check our heart rate and check our blood pressure and check all the things to see what's going on. And then we make a decision, even if we saw the video that prompted us to go to the doctor. And it's the same way it should be with our finances. The books, the tapes, the videos that we see should be prompting us to go and work with someone who's going to work with your individual unique situation. And the reality is that nobody's situation is the same,
That's
right?
right.
It may be similar, but no situation is the same. And so it's important to really understand what your situation is and how you need to move and how you need to plan. Now, some of the solutions may be similar, but the reality is your financial household. You want to look at your whole household as the bank, as you're taking care of your family finance. That's the big thing for all of people who say nobody sat me down. Now it's your turn to sit yourself down, get educated, and then sit your children down and your grandchildren down and pass down this information. But you can't pass down information you don't learn and you don't practice.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You have to sit down and learn. And our brains can accumulate a lot of information, but it's the acting on that information. So if you're sitting down and you're looking at these videos, get a book. Go read and find out yourself what we're talking about. There's tons of books to read. Um, the thing is that you just have to start. You want to make sure you start somewhere. And we've given you some tips throughout this video of how to, what an emergency fund looks like, why you need one, what it is, and some strategies on how to start creating an emergency fund. And some of the things that I'm taking away is that it's a hold yourself accountable. I like that. I like that. We do have to hold ourselves accountable. Don't blame somebody else for your failures. You got to sit up. Let's pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get to figuring out how to make sure that we're going to be okay. And if something happens to us or one of our family members, that emergency fund or whatever it is that we need is there. We have the tools necessary. As an insurance agent, I love talking about money, but I also love making sure that our clients are protected. It makes me feel really good when I know that they can access some funds because they have an emergency. And so we're going to wind down. I want each of us to maybe give some parting words. And one more thing I want to make sure everybody does is follow us on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram, the Millionaire Ladies Mob. We have tips, we have tricks. We'll reach out to us if you want. We'll help you define that emergency fund and how to create one and anything else that you need to talk about as far as finances. So, Carmen and Saran, we're going to wind this down. And you have any parting words for our audience? Either one? No?
Yeah,
No
go
parting words?
ahead.
Hold on, I was go ahead.
Yes. I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Be accountable to yourself. The knowledge that you get, they say knowledge is power. I want to let you know that applied knowledge is power. So we have to take some action. Look at where you are. Start with the budget. See how you can start doing these things, some of these things. Know how to truly define an emergency. Use your emergency fund when there's truly an emergency, not for a day to a shopping day, a stress day, or something like that. Use it when it's a true emergency and then build it back, put it back. just as you would have paid back Auntie Sarita, pay back yourself. And that's all that I have to say. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, follow, and share this with others. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say this: action is better than words. And the best thing for you to do is to start. You will learn during the process, you will learn on the journey. It's the journey that matters. It's you made a decision and now you have to get going. If you have not already, I'm going to recommend a book for you. Read The Alchemist. You can listen to it on audiobook, but the reality is all life that we're living is about the journey. And so the best thing you can do to make sure that your financial journey is fruitful is to get on the journey, because here's the thing, not making a decision is a decision.
Wow, that was powerful. Not making a decision is a decision. That is a t-shirt, Saran. I love that. I love that. And with that said, my name is Aaliyah Sherrod. I'm the healthcare queen. I am all things healthcare. So with that said, we're going to say goodnight and like, follow, share the Millionaire Ladies Mob, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.